Good afternoon, guys. This is Dr. P0183. Hi, guys, and today, welcome to another interesting edition. If you're coming to my channel for the first time, subscribe and turn on your notification. And if you've done that, let's hit the road. So, in today's very video edition, we're going to be talking about the fuel temperature sensor. What is a fuel temperature sensor? I know a lot of you guys who owns your car, a car enthusiast, and uh, DIYs, or even some mechanic do not know that some cars have fuel temperature sensor. So as I'm saying it right now, some of you might be hearing it for the first time and are kind of curious to know where is it located. Now here, the location is very imperative in as much as you're trying to figure out if suppose this is a problem that your car has. Because if you have this problem and you don't know the location where it is, then you can be able to solve the problem, even though if you know all the symptoms which I'm about to call right now, it's not going to be any much of a help to you, though. The only help it's going to provide to you is that you know that it could be the sensor making the mess, because it's barely mentioned by most vloggers or even folks who are blogging. So it's only those who really dive in the deep who actually get to know about this very sensor right here. Now, the other side of it is that it looks quite close, similar like that of the fuel rail pressure sensor in your car. That is a GDI, or if it is Volkswagen, they're going to call it a FSI. Though it's not all FSI that have a fuel temperature sensor. And where is it often located? It's actually located in the rail, the fuel rail. That's crazy. So you have the fuel rail pressure sensor in the rail and you have the fuel temperature sensor in the rail. But that is actually where it's very much vital, because if suppose to take the important data which it needs to send to the ECM to know the right quantity to our fuel which is going inside your combustion chamber. Not just about knowing the right quantity, the temperature of the fuel is important, because the denser the temperature, the hotter it is. All right, the hotter it is, the long lasting the fuel which you have is going to actually take. But if it is pretty much hotter or warmer, then it's going to burn faster. Though it's, when you're talking about fuel burning faster, it also depends also on some other criteria, like the model which your car is actually made to run. I mean, is your car engineered to run with a 95 or octane 95, 91, or 100? Depends on whichever make. But most car makes are actually designed to not to run anything below 91. Anything below 91 is not healthy for the well-being of your engine. So I think I've pretty much given you a good hint about the fuel temperature sensor, why it was designed to know the temperature of the fuel about going inside your combustion chamber. When it goes by, the first symptoms you're going to be seeing is a check engine light. The check engine light is a way which the ECM uses to tell you that one of the engine critical components that is ensured, that is actually engineered to ensure the smooth operation of your engine and better combustion, is on fret. And so when you find a check engine light in your car, there is a lot of other sensors: map sensor, coolant temperature sensor, mass airflow sensor, oxygen sensor, a whole lot of them that can actually trigger a check engine light. But knowing exactly if you have your scan tool in order to be able to find a specific sensor or component that is creating the problem is to dive in with your scanner to be able to find exactly which one is actually throwing the trouble code. Number two symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is irregular engine temperature. When you see your engine temperature fluctuating, then in most cases it might not be stemming from a coolant not present or air trapped inside the coolant circuitry, or the engine is overheating because the fan is not rolling, but because there is a disruption or some sort of a bad fuel temperature sensor present inside your car system. And the best way to know which one is making the mess is to scan your car, because if suppose your fan is not running correctly, it's going to be check engine light, because it's going to result into a catastrophic engine failure if it stops and your engine overheats. And if you have a low coolant temperature sensor, the coolant level sensor is going to report that and you start seeing the coolant flashing. But here we're talking about temperature sensor. So there is a difference between coolant level sensor, right, and the coolant, the temperature sensor of your engine. That is why some cars have two, so you can be able to distinguish between the engine temperature sensor and coolant temperature sensor. So at that, you can be able to have one, just nick one to a specific task, while the other one deal with the rest of them. Like if one is dealing with a coolant, then the other one is going to be dealing with engine temperature sensor as much as the fuel temperature sensor. Three symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is a poor gas mileage. I previously said in this video that it's imperative for the ECM to know the temperature of the fuel about going into the combustion chamber. The colder the fuel is, the more it's going to last in your car. And the warmer or hotter it is, the more faster it's going to burn, even though if your car is running with run 97 or 95. Now, for most cars that even run less than that, the temperature of the fuel is very important. That is why some people are going to be telling you that it's important you get a fuel, and if it is the weather is extremely hot, you see that your car takes more fuel, but if it is extremely cold, your car takes less fuel, because within that time the humidity of the environment has reconditioned the fuel that is present in your gas tank, and the temperature has dropped. And when the temperature dropped, if your car is equipped with fuel temperature sensor, it's going to actually note that, and it's going to just add little, because the ECM uses this same fuel temperature sensor to alter the injector pulse width, to increase it or to decrease it, which can often lead to a better gas mileage or poor gas mileage when it fails. Number 4 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is a black smoke gulping out of your tailpipe. A black smoke gulping out of your tailpipe can come from different sensors. The popular ones are coolant temperature sensors and mass airflow sensor. Also, the intake air temperature sensor. Now, I want you to put your mind towards all this. In this which I've listed, they have one thing in common: the intake air temperature sensor, coolant temperature sensor, mass airflow sensor. Some mass airflow sensor, why actually bring up a black smoke out of the tailpipe when it goes bad, is because the intake air temperature sensor is built inside the MAF sensor. So these three things, they have temperature in mind. So with that knowledge, you should be able to know that when the fuel temperature sensor goes bad, you're going to start seeing a chance of black smoke at your tailpipe, which shows that the system is running rich, adding too much fuel than the air, which is actually supposed to be the stoichiometric ratio, is some sort of imbalance. There's no more 14.7 part of air and 1 part of air that's actually going inside. Maybe it has been compromised to maybe 1 part of fuel to maybe 8 or 5 part of air, and that is a highly rich mixture. So you're going to be seeing a black smoke coming out of your tailpipe if already you are not noticing some sort of other symptoms before this very one, such as engine backfire or any sort. And those engine backfire can actually result if suppose the air fuel mixture gets ignited outside the combustion chamber. 5 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is poor throttle response. Poor throttle response can stem from different kind of things, factors such as bad fuel pump, poor fuel delivery into the fuel system, bad spark, engine retarded timing, two-third timing, a whole lot of them. So, but if you have a bad fuel temperature sensor, you're going to be having a poor throttle response, because the ECM can decide to add little or too much of fuel. Because most cars that are equipped with fuel temperature sensor, their ECM is using the fuel temperature sensor to know precisely how much fuel that it needed to add. Number 6 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is a failed emission. I want you to know that having a check engine light is actually going to make your car to fail, and having too much emission, such as black smoke gulping out of your tailpipe, is going to make your car to fail emission. So if the fuel temperature sensor fails and start making your engine to misbehave, or your computer to start adding too much fuel than necessary, your car is going to fail emission test. Number 7 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is engine underperformance. In order for the engine to perform very well, the critical mixture of the air fuel has to be mixed correctly, and that is where the stoichiometric ratio component comes into play. And if there is any sort of deformity in their performance, then it's going to result into engine underperformance, either running rich or running lean. Lean in the sense that there is too much air present inside the system than fuel. And the 14.7 part of air and 1 part of fuel is the right balance. But if suppose it drops from the 14 to 12, then there is a disbalance. And suppose there is 20 part of air and 1 part of fuel, that is not the right balance. So the engine is going to be running lean, and this is going to be creating engine underperformance. And it's all going to be stemming from a bad fuel temperature sensor. So you should pretty much know that gone are those days where the ECM or there is no ECM in the car, but the ECM you have currently right now, they are smart just like your phone. They are very much aware of anything that is happening in your car. They have too many control modules in your car that talks and communicate with each other. And your ECM is one of them. The number 8 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is your car engine have a rough idle. Rough idle, see your needle going up and down, or poor idle when it's unstable. If you want to know a better look at what the fuel temperature sensor does is when you tamper with a coolant temperature sensor, you want to take a better look at what the fuel temperature sensor do in your car. Then you want to observe some other temperature sensors in your car, such as the air intake temperature sensors, coolant temperature sensors. How did these sensors behave when they go bad? How does a car and how does the ECM handle such situation? That is what you should use to know more information about this very sensor here and know its primary objective. 9 symptoms of a bad fuel temperature sensor is your car may likely start and die. Your car may experience a hard start or no start at all in some cases. And this is some kind of thing that's going to be very dependent on the car make and model. And when you're treating a car or you're trying to start up a car that starts and die, or the car that's having a crank no start, you could be having a bad fuel temperature sensor. If the engineering of that very car or the fuel control, the complete fuel control is given to the ECM to have a complete jurisdiction over what goes into the combustion chamber, and if without it, nothing should be done and coded with the fuel temperature sensor, then your car may not even start at all, or may start and stall, or do a hard start. I hope you find this very useful to solving your car problem. I remain Dr. P0183. I hope to see you on my next video. Bye for now. Catch you later.